Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1292B and today's date is May 29th, 2017 and the title of the episode is Leakers Identified, Continuation of Operation Clean House. Now before I get started, I just want to salute all those individuals that who are currently and have been serving in our military. Thank you for your service, and I wanted to take a moment to remember all those people who died while serving in the country's armed forces. Let's take a moment of silence to honor those individuals. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, in the corporate media, we hear, all the news reports about Russian collusion, Kushner trying to set up back channels with Moscow. Julian Assange is out there, and he considers the alleged attempt of U.S. President Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor Kushner to establish a secret communication channel with Moscow to be a correct decision. And yes, they knew they were being spied upon. Trump and his team, they realized that there was a lot of leftovers from Obama. This deep state is intertwined into the government. And from all the reports that he can see now, they knew they were being spied upon. And this is why they're setting up these back channels. Many presidents have done this before, and this is nothing new. But the real issue here is finding those leakers. And Trump right now, he's putting together a war room in response to all this Russian collusion and the news. And he's looking to restructure the White House communication strategy and maybe remove individuals. But the biggest issue plaguing the White House right now is all the leaking. And we can see right now that the Trump administration officials said that we have identified 3 leakers of classified White House information. Now, they did not reveal these names as of yet, but they said they are going to end up firing many individuals. And of course, if they have broken the law, most likely these individuals will be brought up on charges. And what we're seeing right now is that he is going after all these individuals and he is cleaning house right now. Now, this is a continuation of getting rid of Comey. And I believe that this is going to continue. Now, does that mean the deep state's just going to sit back and take this? No. You're going to see more corporate media news reports out there, of course, citing sources, confidential sources, government officials who want to remain anonymous because they can never actually show anything. This is all propaganda. This is why they use the word sources. Actually, what's very interesting is that Trump is out there now actually saying the same exact thing, that all they can say is sources now. And what is happening right now is Trump is not holding back anymore. Those individuals that are getting rid of the deep state, getting rid of the globalists, getting rid of those individuals intertwined into the system, well, he's going after each and every one of these. And I'm going to say we're going to start seeing many, many things happen as we move forward. And we understand that to unravel all this, it takes some time. You just can't say, okay, let me write this executive order and just have it happen. As we can see, that doesn't work with the travel ban. So he's going to have to chip away at the deep state, remove piece by piece parts of the deep state. And the deep state is trying to do the same exact thing to him, where they're trying to say, okay, let's zero in on this person, try to get rid of that person, and put someone there we want. And this is the battle that we are seeing right now. It is happening right out in the open. Now, while the corporate media is very busy reporting on propaganda, trying to get Trump out of office, one way or another, Trump is doing things in the background. And he realizes that the deep state, well, they are spying on him, and he's doing it in private, not in the White House anymore. If you notice, the leaks have subsided a little bit because he's taking his business in other areas and speaking with individuals, and they're making sure that there are no individuals who are leaking this information. And he's looking to set up trade. Trade is very important right now because as the system collapses, as the petrodollar, the dollar system that we're on right now, ceases to exist, well, we're going to have a major problem moving forward, and we're going to need trade with a lot of these countries. And he's looking to have bilateral trade deals with individual nations. Now, of course, the globalists, they do not want this. They want a global trading type of system. And just like Trump dealing with Germany, he just can't go to Germany and deal with trade. He has to go to the EU and deal with trade with the EU. And of course, these are non-elected leaders. Think about what the globalists, what the central bankers wanted. They wanted to be in charge of the entire system. Those individuals in the EU, they are non-elected individuals that would be controlling trade for the governments in Europe. If we had this TPP, we would have non-elected individuals handling our country, handling Canada, handling Europe, handling everywhere, except China and Russia because they didn't want to be part of it, and many other countries that are part of the BRICS system. And what that really meant was, on top of the sovereign court system of each country would sit a corporate court system controlled by bankers, corporations, the elite, that would overrule the country's court system. They would be making all the deals. They would be making all the rules. This was the plan of the globalists. Now, Trump is looking at this saying it would be better off if we went to each country, because each country has something else to offer, and we can offer these countries different things. It would be better off if we had trade deals with each individual country. Now, of course, they're going to say this is not going to work. This is a terrible thing. Even Germany's Merkel is out there saying that we cannot rely upon Great Britain and American anymore, and we need to maybe go in different directions. Now, of course, what they're doing, and they're part of the globalist system, they don't want to have any part of a system that is not part of the globalist system. This is why they've been trying to pressure Trump into going along with the Paris climate change deal. And this is part of their globalist system. And we're still going to have to wait to see how Trump and what he does with this deal. Hopefully, he backs the United States out of this to complete the plan of removing the entire system from the globalist agenda, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, what's very interesting is that Tusli Gabbard was out there, and she put out a new video called Breaking Up the Big Banks. And this individual went to all different search engines and realized that on the other search engines, well, Tulsi's videos got top ranking. But on Google, it was nowhere to be found, which is very interesting. Now, remember, the central bankers, they don't like a government official coming out with something that says, let's break up the big banks. They didn't like when Ron Paul said, let's audit the Fed. They don't like it that Tusli Gabbard is saying, let's break up the big banks. This is not part of their agenda. And a lot of times what they try to do is they try to hide this information. And we've seen this before. I mean, Natural News was completely removed from Google's index until Mike Adams started to complain. They brought his site back on. But without all that complaining and saying what was the reason, they just decided one day, let's de-index it and pretend it doesn't exist. They do it a lot in YouTube, where people put out videos and they kind of suppress it so no one sees it. Now, out in the Philippines, we see President Duterte. He is going after the Islamic State. And he's calling on separatists and other militant groups to join the government fight against the Islamic State. Now, he already called out the CIA for bringing in the Islamic State into his country. He already said that they're trying to assassinate him. They want him removed. They do not like him. He's going after the drug cartel, which is controlled by the CIA. And basically what he's doing is getting rid of the CIA inside of his country. And he's offering all these different militant groups to go after the Islamic State. And he says, listen, I will give you the same pay as government soldiers. I just need your help to go after these individuals. Now, out in North Korea, we can see North Korea has fired off additional missiles. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is that North Korea is firing off missiles. They didn't kill anyone. They land in international water. And other countries, they've been firing off missiles, and nobody says anything. I mean, Israel is going to be firing off a new type of missile. Are we going to bring our aircraft carriers up to Israel and say, wow, they're firing off missiles, maybe they're getting ready to invade someplace? No, we don't say that. The United States is going to practice intercepting missiles, and they're going to be firing missiles from California, where they've done before. Do other countries come up and say, oh, why are you firing this ballistic missile? Are you getting ready to attack us? Because if you look, those missiles were headed towards China, was heading towards North Korea. They landed it around the Marshall Islands, but we could see all countries test their missile systems. There's an agenda here, and they've been testing missiles prior to 2006, going way back. And some years they tested a lot more missiles, and other years they tested less missiles. But North Korea, they understand that the deep state, they are moving to have some type of regime change. And this is why they had their focus on North Korea. Remember, North Korea, there's a lot of sanctions, and to bring in currency into the country, they started to export opium. And this is in direct competition to the CIA in Afghanistan. And they don't like competition. And this is why, one of the reasons, there's many other reasons why they want to get into North Korea, but we could see this is one of them. So they fired off another missile. And Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is saying that the North Korean missile flew about 400 kilometers before landing inside of Japan's economic zone in the Sea of Japan. Now, 450 kilometers is about 279 miles. And if you go onto the map and you look at where North Korea is, where the Sea of Japan is, and where Japan is, and you map out about 279 miles, it looks like, well, maybe it really didn't hit the economic zone of Japan. It looks like it was right outside of that, but a lot of the reports are saying that we believe, now this is not hard facts, they say we believe that this missile landed in the economic zone. And if you really look at the reports, it said may have, believed, and you have to look at these key words because it doesn't say they know for a fact. And when you map it out, depending on where the missile blasted off, even if you go to the very, very tip of the eastern part of North Korea, it still wouldn't have been inside of the economic zone. It looks like it barely reached maybe the border of it. But of course, they have to make it a bigger deal than it really is, and they have to push the propaganda out there that North Korea is getting ready to attack, which would be absolutely ridiculous with China, Russia, and all the rest surrounding. Now, Moscow is out there, and they're urging international communities to be cautious in taking further action against North Korea. China is out there saying the same exact thing. Listen, let's calm the situation down. Let's exercise restraint. Trump is saying, yes, North Korea fired a missile. This is a bad person. But China, they're trying to control the situation, and it looks like they're doing a good job. So we can see right now, he still is not out there saying that there's a red line. He's not using absolutes. He's saying that China is working with North Korea right now. And remember, they're trying to create this situation where this can be solved economically and trying to calm the situation down because the deep state is going to continually push their agenda to try to remove Kim Jong-un and take control of North Korea. Now, Egypt, they are aggressively hunting down the Islamic State terrorists in Libya. They are hitting many different targets in Libya. And General Haftar in Libya, well, he's come out and said that Qatar and other countries, well, they are supporting terrorist groups in Libya. They are paid mercenaries, and these countries are supporting them. Now, what's very interesting, we have the Philippines, we have Russia, we have China, we have the general in Libya, we have Assad in Syria, we have Iraq, and many other countries out there now speaking up and saying, yes, these are paid mercenary forces, and these are the countries that are supporting the terrorist groups. And when we take a step back, we've known this for a very long time, and the truth is now coming out. Now, what's very interesting is remember that chemical attack where Trump launched 59 Tomahawk missiles into the Chayat Air Base, and it really didn't do that much damage. They were flying planes about hours after the missiles hit the base. But according to the reports from the corporate media, they were saying that 90 people in the chemical gas attack, they died. And we know it was a false flag, and we know that, well, maybe not 90 people actually died because it looks like it was a complete setup. And it looks like it was filmed to make it look like things were really happening when they really weren't. Because they weren't wearing gloves, they were touching the bodies, and if it was truly sarin gas, they would have been infected with the gas. But we need to think about it this way. Let's go along with their story that 90 people died. Do you know that the U.S. in their latest bombings killed 225 civilians? So should the Assad government come out and say, well, because the U.S. just killed 225 civilians in their bombing runs, we need to launch missiles into D.C.? Would that make any sense? Because that's what the United States government central bankers do, the deep state. They use this fake report. They say that Assad killed people. Well, Assad could say the same thing. You're in my country illegally. You killed 225 civilians. I am now attacking D.C. because look what you're doing to the people in this country. Now, the U.S.-led coalition warplanes, they've been dropping warning leaflets on the al-Tanf area, warning the Syrian army, listen, don't continue your advance, withdraw right now. So basically what the U.S.-led coalition is doing, inside the country of Syria, where they weren't invited, where they're waging war against the Syrian government, as we can see, using terrorists to go after Assad and remove the elected leader. They're telling the armed forces of Syria, don't try to move any further near al-Tanf, withdraw your forces in your own country. Which is unbelievable. Can you imagine if this happened in the United States, where there was an invading force, and all of a sudden the invading force dropped leaflets in the area of Texas, let's say Houston, and said, listen, remove your forces. This is no longer your area. I mean, how would the U.S. take this? Would they just sit back and say, okay, you invaded, this is your area now? No problem. It looks like they're trying to guard that area of the border crossing to continually bring in the paid mercenaries. They're also setting up a way to separate Syria. Now, we know that Trump was out in the Middle East talking to Saudi Arabia and many other countries, saying that we're going after terrorism. And he is working with Russia, he's working with China, he's working with many other nations to actually go after the terrorists. Not to support the terrorists at this point. He wants to bring this to an end. Remember, the deep state has been controlling, with the intelligence operations, all of these terrorist groups. And I believe what he's trying to do right now is bring this all to an end. Now, this is not going to be easy, because we know the deep state's not just going to sit back and say, hey, okay, yes, get rid of the terrorist groups, no problem. No, they're going to push their agenda forward. Now, remember, within the Pentagon, within government, within many different areas, the deep state is intertwined. Trump does not have full control of everything as of yet. Some are working rogue, and he's trying to identify these individuals, trying to bring them and get rid of them, and this is a process that is happening right now. This is part of the Clean House Project. We see that Marcron, well, we know he is part of the deep state central banking system. He talks in absolutes. He says the use of chemical weapons in Syria is a red line for France. He already used an absolute. And he said if Syria moves ahead and uses chemical weapons once again, France would react, which tells us they might be setting up some type of chemical weapon attack, because they're already making red line threats. So we need to watch this situation very closely. And we know the deep state, they are getting prepared and ready for some type of an event, because they're not going to give up. They're not just going to say everything that we've been working for the last, hundreds of years, we're not just going to say forget it now. They're going to move forward. They're going to create an event, and we're going to have to see how Trump reacts. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.